Hey everybody, thanks for making it after lunch. This is the after lunch kind of lull, so hopefully I can keep you entertained. We're going to do a session on Teams Phone Mobile, so not the Teams app that you get on mobiles, which is what everybody thinks Teams Mobile is, Teams Phone Mobile is annoyingly, but a different thing where you can have your cell or mobile number also be your Teams soft phone number. And if anybody can decide on what, as an industry, we're going to standardise on cell, fixed line, mobile, soft line, who knows, but hopefully that makes sense. I'm Tom Arbuthnot. I run my own company, Empowering Cloud. It's a Teams advisory community, so there's a whole bunch of content from 16, I think we're up to 17 subject matter experts, a bunch of people that have spoken or been here this week as well. And I also work part-time for a carrier called Pure IP. And disclaimer, there's actually a whole bunch of peers in this room, so if there's any questions, there's definitely more than one face in here that might know the answers between us. Thanks to all the sponsors. It's been said multiple times, but the sponsors do make this possible. We wouldn't be able to get together like this without the sponsors. So please do take the time to walk around the floor, say hello to people. They're here to engage with you, and they'll come back if we do engage. So yeah, just take some time to say hello to them. They're really supporting the event. So in this session, we go through what is Teams Phone Mobile. We can go through the user experience to understand how you'd experience it as an end user, why you might want Teams Phone Mobile. Talk about the admin experience, and then all being well, we're going to do a bit of a demo of how it actually works. So what is it? It's not your kind of classic fixed mobile convergence where you fork your fixed line or landline number to a cell phone number, and it also rings. Like that solution and variants of that fixed mobile convergence solutions have been around for years and years and years. The difference here is Microsoft are working directly with the mobile operators to deeply integrate, so that single mobile number really is your Teams number in every scenario. So you can make a call from Teams, or you can make a call from the standard dialer on your mobile, not in the app, like the standard, VoLTE dialer, and make a call, and it's a Teams call in terms of all the features. So we'll talk about what that looks like. So user experience. So as a user, you will get a SIM, a physical SIM, or much, much more likely an eSIM. Most of the carriers are only doing eSIM that are on this program. And eSIM, if you're not familiar with it, certain phones, and it's a small subset of phones. It's iPhones, Pixels, higher-end Samsungs. You can literally take a code or a QR code and load a SIM, E being virtual, into the phone, and that provides your mobile service much like a fixed physical SIM. So when you take this from an operator, your user will be given a SIM or an eSIM to load on their phone. Could be their primary number, could be their secondary number. It has to be a business phone and a business contract with your carriers. So you can't bring your own number to this solution. It will be a dedicated number, and it's only a certain subset of carriers that are certified for it as well. So when the user gets that SIM, this will be their onboarding experience. It will say, hey, looks like you've got a number, click through. You onboard to this with the Teams app, but it doesn't mean you need the Teams app for the thing to work, confusingly. But that's the onboard experience. So once you're set up, that phone number is both your cell phone number, even when you don't have the app running, when you've only got cell service, and it's also your Teams number on your desktop or Teams Phone Mobile app as well. So you'll get simultaneous ringing on the native mobile and on the Teams app on the desktop, and there's policies in place to say, how would you like the mobile to behave by default? So would you prefer to have your incoming calls be on the mobile native dialer, or would you prefer your incoming PSTN calls to be on the Teams app? And the idea there being you can choose. So one of the benefits of this solution is the Teams app is relying on data, so either Wi-Fi or cell data. That isn't perfect for many people, particularly even UK as an example. When I drive across the country, data will drop in and out. It's got a lot better. Both the mobile networks have got better, and the app and the codecs have got a lot better, but it's still not perfect. And when you come somewhere as big as the States, then coverage is super variable as well, depending on where you are in the country. So that cell service is much more likely to be continuous and more robust. That's the concept. By the way, I've got a catch box here, so if you do have questions as you go, we can definitely throw this around. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end, but we'll have some time at the end for questions as well. So you've now got this scenario where it's one number working on both systems. So that gives you some unique capabilities. So you can move calls between the cell native dialer and the Teams app. So you can escalate from native to Teams app and then from Teams app to a full-on video sharing experience and vice versa as well. It's going, the call and the signaling is going through Teams. It's not like it's independent of the operator. So Teams policies, things like number presentation, can be controlled. So maybe you as a business want to present your main business number for the cell calls being made. You can do that through the Teams policies and have the corporate number turn up. So when they ring back, they're not ringing back that individual as an example. They're ringing back a main number on an auto attendant. Yep. Yeah. Because again, that's a great question. The question from Scott was, does that include the native dialer? Yeah, so native dial calls are still signaling through Teams, picking up all the same policies. Great question. Transfers, so you can do transfers, again, either native or in the Teams app, much more likely to be in the Teams app. Unified presence, so again, Teams is aware of these calls, so someone rings you on your phone number, your cell number, you pick up on your native dialer, nothing to do with the Teams app. Teams is still aware that call is happening and your presence will flip. It's a really minor thing, but quite a nice feature for people that spend a lot of time on their mobiles and then they're getting interrupted by Teams calls on a different number. That synchronizes it all out, so your presence is the same regardless of whether you're using your mobile or Teams. Unified call history. Again, Teams has awareness of everything that's happening here. So you've got an example there of history on the native dialer and history on Teams, and those will be synced up. And all your CDR records, your calls made, calls received, that all goes into Teams as well. So from a reporting point of view, you as a Teams admin or a customer will be able to understand everything that's going on for all the phone calls. Single voicemail, so the carrier won't offer you a voicemail in this scenario. It will all pipe through to Teams, again, regardless of whether it's mobile or Teams calls. And this is a really big one. It's really painful to get compliance call recording for mobiles. There are solutions out there. There are custom SIMs. There are things that networks can do. But it tends to be a bit high-end and a bit of a pain. And then you end up with a silo of recording for your mobile experience and a silo of recording for your phone/Teams/meetings experience. So in this scenario, because everything's routing through Teams, you're getting the ability to compliance record with any of those certified compliance vendors, your mobile calls as well. So this is really exciting for anybody that has compliance requirements and has mobiles in there, so FinServe being a typical one. They can take their existing solution. There's not even any license uptick or change here, at least there doesn't have to be from an architecture point of view, because it's just another phone call to Teams, but it means even if they never touch Teams and they use their cell 100% of the time, you would be capturing those voice calls. As it stands today, there's no integration for SMS, so right now you wouldn't be able to capture those, but Microsoft have talked a few times about somehow bringing SMS into this solution, so at some point you'll have more coverage, but right now there's not SMS on this solution. That was the user experience. Any questions around that before we move on to how it works from an admin perspective? Yeah? Sorry, let me throw you the catch box. Ready? Oh, that was a bit high. Well done.
So question on SMS. Does that mean if I have a phone and I get the number onto the phone through an eSIM, there's no SMS, so can I still send an SMS on that phone?
SMS will still work, but it'll only work to the native mobile. Teams won't be aware of it. So
yeah, okay.
It's a proper cell number with SMS capability,
yeah, okay.
but it's not brought into the service yet.
Thank you.
It's quite a difficult problem to solve that as well, because if you think about SMS, natively the operator knows about it, but lots of SMS now, particularly you look at what Apple do, they kind of hijack that number and then they send SMS on their own internal network. So it sounds like an easy thing to do, but actually it's quite complicated. But I noticed Microsoft did something unrelated with apps, their kind of phone companion app, that they could send SMSs from desktop. So I don't have any insider info, but I can see a concept where they could use those apps to start pulling the SMSs through to some kind of Teams experience. It's an interesting use case. Lots of people, other UCASs do have that SMS scenario for users, so people that have been on those platforms do ask. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of, Scott's right, there's a whole bunch of third parties that will give you SMS apps in Teams, but it won't be your user number, it'll be a dedicated number. So lots of use cases in things like education where they need to broadcast information. And they're two-way and everything, they're integrated to Teams, but they're an app, they're not your number. Thank you. Yeah?
Now I forgot my question. It'll come back.
I'm just going to wait until, no, I'm joking.
Oh, no, I got it. So with regards to presence, you said that if you're on a call, mobile call, the presence is pushed into Team. Is that also if you're on a mobile call on your native dialer?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
On your personal number as well?
Yeah, well, so on the Teams phone number.
Okay.
So if you have dual SIM, which you can do, it wouldn't flip your Teams presence. I haven't tested this, so I'm going on logic rather than having tested it, to be honest. But my understanding is it wouldn't flip, somebody else checked it there, it wouldn't flip your presence because it's the Teams number being busy as opposed to your personal.
Right.
And the scenario this is really aimed at right now is not bring a second number to a consumer phone or add a consumer number to an existing phone. It's your business phone. Down the road, you can see other solutions coming, but right now it's more like you've been issued your Verizon or Rogers business phone, and this is how it works. Great question. Any more for user experience? No, I think that's planned, but right now it's a dedicated business number. Yeah. Just out of interest, because it's like, how many people in the room, like your use case, so forget users, like your personal use case, could you see using this? Just put hands up. Yeah, so good percentage, about half. Interesting. I have a theory this is going to be quite impactful. It's been out for about a year and a bit now. There's limited operators. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I can think of a lot of people beyond just, obviously there's the whole frontline, first-line worker scenario where they're mainly on mobile, and then maybe they come back to a desktop experience for some of the time, so having that single number is great for them. But I can also see a lot of scenarios where knowledge workers, particularly in Europe, businesses tend to issue corporate dedicated mobiles as well. I think it's a little bit less in the States, but much more in Europe. So you're already giving the user that mobile number anyway, and then you're giving them a fixed line as well. And certainly for years of doing Blink and Skype and Teams, one of the challenges of adoption we've always had is a lot of people reach for their native mobile dialer, just out of muscle memory of using their mobile. So if they're a mobile first user, they won't tend to bother to launch the Teams app to make a call, they'll just use the native dialer. Yeah, Nate.
Yeah, that made me think of something. So native dialer, escalate to video, right? So in the frontline worker scenario, pick up the call, native dialer is my default setting. Yep. Now I need to escalate to video, but I'm on the native dialer. Do we know how?
Yeah, you have to go into the Teams app, and kind of Teams is basically pulling that call back and then creating it into a VoIP data call.
So if you switch from native dialer to the Teams app, it'll show your call in progress and you can escalate to video?
Exactly. But very much like today, if you pick up on different devices, you get that ability to pull the call back, and it will say, do you want to add a device or transfer? It's the same type of scenario, because Teams is in control of the signaling the whole time, so it knows what's going on all the endpoints.
Gotcha. So is it, I presume you don't have the option to say add this device or transfer it. The call's already there in the Teams app.
Yeah, so it gives you a little pop-up.
It gets some crazy feedback loop
on the screenshot. Yeah, no, it's aware of what's going on, so it doesn't do the crazy feedback uplift.
I think that's a nice feature. Escalate to video.
So you've got like a kind of pop-up there.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Cool.
Yeah.
Good throws today. Nobody's been hit over the head yet.
Are you aware of any carrier upcharges?
Charges. Now, there's a great question.
Money is kind of important.
Yeah, it really is. And I think potentially this is one of the things that might slow this down. So, like, obviously the mobile operators have had to do a bunch of stuff to make this work. Obviously, they're businesses, they want to make money. And also, interestingly, a whole bunch of these operators also have fixed line businesses, right? So do they want to push this really hard and impact their fixed line or not? My thinking is, as this gets more and more out into the market, if they don't do it, somebody else will. I don't have specific numbers for every carrier, and they're not super readily available. But the consensus seems to be, if you think about direct routing or operator connect being, a couple of dollars, let's say for the sake of argument, $2.50, the mobile operators seem to be trying to add another $5 or so on top of their mobile plan. So if you bought a standard business mobile plan, they will upsell you to this phone experience. And that's one of the challenges from a pure accounting point of view, because if it's, for the sake of simple maths, it's $30 for the mobile service, and it's $2 at scale for direct routing, might be more, might be less, the accountants are like, well, I don't want to pay $5 to go to $35 for the mobile experience when I can pay $2 and the user's got the same experience, quote unquote. So we'll see whether the users and the service owners of Teams can make the case that Teams Phone Mobile is a better experience for those users and it's worth paying extra for, or if the mobile operators, want to push that harder. But yeah, right now I'm hearing that there is an uplift, and there's people in the room from operators and stuff, so I don't know if anybody's got anything to verify that or completely shoot me down. Sorry, Dino? Oh, once the recording stops. Okay. Right, we're all huddling over there at the end of the session. Could you just give me the name for it? No. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, on or off the recording, I'd like to hear. Empowering Cloud, we're doing a whole bunch of research. We just hired a person to look full-time at this. That's one of the things we're looking at. But because it's business only, you can't just hit the website and see the pricing. They'll want to talk to you about your opportunity. And all these things are negotiable at some kind of scale. But yeah, punchline is, I think the mobile operators are going to want an uplift for this, for sure. So in terms of how the admin experience works, it's very much like Operator Connect. It was called Operator Connect Mobile before it got rebranded. So you have to align with the carrier. So you would go into the admin center, click to say, I'm interested, and then it goes to a offline experience to talk to the carrier, agree your contracts, etc., etc. This is the coverage at the moment. So the coverage isn't very strong at the moment. Like, it's been around for a while. Each of the telcos in play only really has their native market. And this is another one of the things that I think is slowing it down a little bit, because if you're an enterprise, you want to give an experience to all your users, ideally not a subset, and you generally don't want to have an operator in every single country. Usually the operators will consolidate and offer multiple. They might be subbing it to other operators, but you don't really want to go to 6 operators to cover 6 countries, and that's the only coverage at the moment. Very much like Operator Connect, it takes a while to get the ball rolling. Carriers are not the fastest in the world. I work for one, so I kind of know that. But getting any of these to move is difficult, and the Teams Phone Mobile integration is a pretty deep integration to their network. So it's a non-trivial thing for them to do. We've got BT and Version 02 coming in the UK, and they've been coming for quite a while. So hopefully we'll have some coverage there. And there are others coming down the pipe. But just like Operator Connect, it starts off. It'll take a while to get traction. I think we'll see more and more. You do need to assign a license to the users. It's a zero-cost license for Teams Phone Mobile. I think I've got it up here, actually. So when Microsoft were developing this, they were toying with the idea of, is there a charge for this feature? There is no charge. They decided on no charge, but they'd already baked in a license module to it. So you've got this zero-cost license to add to it as well. My slide seems to have frozen. Sorry, you didn't see the screen. So there's the license. And then from there on in, your operator is pushing numbers into your tenant just like Operator Connect. So they'll provision the numbers available into your tenant, and you can then assign those to your users. So I have got a system here. It's Pinko, who are one of the Operator Connect Accelerator partners, have jumped me onto their test system. So this is not fully live, but it will give us an idea of how it all works. Anyone got any questions about the admin experience before we do a bit of a demo? No? Oh, yeah, thanks. Who's got the, sorry, we'll get the catch box for the recording.
This might be for Alex and Scott, but
I hope it is, that's great.
So like, let's say a company's on direct routing or Operator Connect, migrating users to Teams Phone Mobile. Would that follow kind of the same approach that you talked about in your session? Because yeah, more than likely, I'm guessing this won't be a greenfield deployment. It'll be coming from something else, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So the question about porting numbers. So in the US, you have the same prefix for mobile and fixed line, which is crazy. So like in Europe, we typically have a different. So like UK is 07, so it'll be +447. So we can know before we dial if we're dialing towards a mobile number or a fixed line. It used to be in the UK, and still is for some carriers. You'll get charged different rates depending on whether you're dialing to somebody's mobile or somebody's fixed line. Also super interesting culturally, because in the UK, dialing somebody's mobile is like a little bit more personal than dialing somebody's fixed line. Like I wouldn't dial, if you have an email signature and it's first time of contact, it's dialing straight to their mobile is like a bit more personal than hitting their classic landline. So just interesting. But what that leads to is you wouldn't have that scenario in the UK where you're porting in fixed line to Operator Connect Mobile because those numbers are not mobile numbers. maybe, or maybe I need to get over it and just ring whoever. I mean, to be honest, it's always chat first now anyway, isn't it? Cool. So I've got this system from Pinko here, so to save me fumbling around, this is their back end. I've already set the tenants up as an Operator Connect and a Teams Phone Mobile tenant. And what that's given me the capability to do is see what's going on from a user perspective, assign numbers, etc. And then on the tenant, I've got a few users who have got, in this case, it's an E5 user, so they include Teams Phone Standard, and they've got the Teams Phone Mobile contract, which is a license, which is a zero-cost license. And then we can see on the user profile, so again, this is how you can tell. You can tell this in the US, but this is a mobile number aligned to that user rather than a classic VoIP fixed line number. So I have two users set up, and I've got a dialer here that can get me to the inside of the network. And then I've got a second mobile phone here. So I can ring that mobile phone. It will watch me dial a number. So this is the user that is also this user on my desktop ringing through. And if service is on my side, I should see it here in a second. Nothing yet. Try again. Oh, thank you. That would help. Glad Ben's here. Oh, it's gone to voicemail. Signal might be letting me down here. I'll give it one more go. It did work before the session, so it does work technically. No, because it's like a closed network, so. No, it's the top one I'm calling. I got the missed call notification here, interestingly. Just double check online. Yeah, I was just checking that actually. It is available, and I'm getting the missed call notification through, which is interesting. I'll give it one more go, and then we'll abandon it. Yeah, it's always the demo cards. It's always dangerous to do a live demo. There we go. Third time lucky. I was just going to persist for like 10 minutes there. Okay, so I'll try not to make these feedback. So we've got a mobile call coming through here. So you can see this is, if you think about the dialer I showed you on the screen, that represents the mobile device of this user who's also on their desktop signed in to Teams here. So this was the escalation you were talking about, Nate. I can join this call, transfer to this device. So I'm pulling the mobile call into a Teams call. And what's happening on the other side, this is pulling through to a Teams call on this side. So it started off on native dialer, and now the Teams app has popped. Oh, mute off. So now we've got a two-way call, and I can do video here as well. Okay. So we've got from a PSTN call, we've escalated up to a Teams call. And we could go through it, but all the CDRs, everything else that happened in Teams, the presence, all flipped for both users in the mobile call scenario and then in the Teams native scenario. Okay. So that was it for demo, but I want to leave plenty of time for questions and feedback. So did that all make sense, first of all, in terms of how it routed and how it worked? And anyone got any other questions? Yeah, I mean, Scott, you might do a better job than I can, but there's a deep integration between Microsoft using the Azure for Operators stuff and ties into the mobile core of the mobile provider. So they both know what's going on all the time. So again, it's not just a fork. Even when you're making mobile to mobile calls, Teams knows about it. Scott, I don't know if you want to go deeper into the underlying architecture. It's not a trivial integration as well. Like that, I guess that's the important thing to understand. Those mobile calls are very sensitive, and obviously they're running phone service and have all sorts of legal requirements. So hence this stuff takes a while to put together. But there's, say, 6 operators in flight and more coming, so it's definitely possible, but it doesn't come quickly. Nate?
Multiple operators is okay?
Multiple operators. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so just like Operator Connect, from a Teams tenant experience, absolutely you can mix and match any combination of operators for any user. Obviously, any one user is only on one operator, but absolutely Microsoft are not tying you to any particular operator. So if you did want to push forward with this and you had those different countries and you wanted to split operators to cover them, absolutely you could do that today. Yeah.
If I'm a customer thinking about this, would you recommend deploying multiple carriers now, or going with, let's say, Verizon and hoping in the future that they expand into Canada?
I mean, it's a business choice more than a technical choice. Obviously, if you go talk to these, the suggestion would be talk to your operators because they'll have an idea of what their timelines are. Microsoft won't announce anything on behalf of operators either. But I think if you want it in the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to have to mix and match operators. I don't think any of those operators are suddenly going to do a whole bunch of countries, but that is the vision. And as Scott rightly said there, what tends to happen with these Microsoft, with these programs, is they'll pick a player to work with, work out all the kinks, work together, and then it will scale. When Operator Connect now, we're at 61 operators. We started with 12, so I'm sure this will go the same way over time. Yeah, Nate, can you throw the box in front of you, mate?
Thank you. Question. So are there any features that might be restricted concerning like utilization on a native dialer and versus the Microsoft Teams client? So let's say you have an end user that's utilizing the native dialer side, but someone on the other side that's using Teams, and they want to utilize video from the native dialer. Is there a restriction there that where they have to escalate that call to a Teams call now?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so anything that's beyond voice will need the Teams app because it's data and so cell service doesn't have a concept of live video that goes to data. So yeah, absolutely. While technically speaking, a user could choose to use this without the Teams app, other than that little onboarding process, practically speaking, they're going to want to use the Teams app anytime there's an escalation. It wouldn't let you escalate. If one person was on Teams and the other person only had cell, they wouldn't get that Teams app pop to say, hey, let's throw this into video.
Tom, I'm a little confused still on the usage where someone makes a call. Would the usage go to the carrier's usage minutes or to Teams?
Yeah, great question. So if you're making a PSTN call, be it cell or fixed line, that is going to be that operator, that carrier providing that service. Jumping around a bit. So they would be charging you as part of your plan or per minute. If you're making a VoIP call, a Teams-to-Team user call, or you're escalating to video or even escalating to VoIP, which would be an odd scenario, but it's perfectly possible, you're no longer using the operator's network, so at that point they wouldn't be charging you per minute.
Seems like the carrier would be losing money in that situation by loss of traffic.
Yeah, I guess technically, if they're
That's true.
Yeah, that's the practicality of it, but yeah. I mean,
most people have a plan, with unlimited or whatever, but...
yeah, I think it's interesting, sorry, I'll come to you in a second. I think it's interesting that at the moment it's only mobile network operators, not MVNOs, the virtual network operators, so there's some tension there about how hard do they want to push Teams versus having their own native services and their fixed line services, so we'll see what happens there. I mean, we're not really adding or removing a new experience here. They probably had the Teams app before. Maybe usage goes up, but I mean, in the long game, data's the game for the mobile operators, not minutes really. Question? Sorry, grab the box. That's it. You probably know more than me, so you might.
I don't know about more, but so as we looked at this, we've had some just interesting questions about what an end user would prefer to use. Would they prefer to use a native dialer versus an in-app experience, right? Obviously, you can escalate to an in-app experience if you need to for video. But
yep.
Just out of curiosity, what have you heard? Have you gotten that question? As you asked that question, because
yeah, it's a good question. So I've seen a lot of people using native dialer. So we used to push Link and Skype for Business into enterprise, globally, but it would always be a case that one of the things that some, or not always, but some of the customers would be like, oh great, we've got a mobile app now, we're going to really reduce our cell costs because everybody will use the app all the time and that will reduce our costs. The apps have got a lot better than they were in those days. You know, they were slower to load, they were a bit fussy. But even now, the Teams mobile app is still a couple of clicks to get to the proper dialer to make the call. I don't have any hard stats, but definitely back in the day, we found that even if we pushed comms to users saying, hey, please use the app, they would still reach for their native mobile dialer. And because they would get missed calls, they would click to ring back. And obviously that doesn't instantiate the app, it instantiates the native dialer. So I would hazard a guess that most mobile users tend to swing towards native dialer. Maybe again, good question if everybody's prepared to say it, but most people in this room probably using Teams. What are the hands up for cell on native dialer? Oh, so a lot of people are bothering to launch the app or don't want to put their hand up, one or the other. So yeah, we'll see. I guess you'll be able to see the stats when you get this together because you'll see both sides.
The other question I had was, we've heard that there will be other options coming in Teams Phone Mobile. So one of the things we've heard is that even with this, as it currently sits, because of the complexity around using mobile control point and you actually have to do provisioning on both sides, right?
Yep.
And not a lot of mobile operators want you messing around with their HSS and stuff like that, right? So we've heard that other options are coming that would just kind of just be a different way to do this,
yep.
right? So if you heard any similar things, like when that might be coming?
Definitely nothing on a recording. No, I don't. Nothing public about anything different. Might be interesting to see what comes though. I definitely think your point about it being hard to get integrated to mobile operators definitely rings true because, and also these changes are meaningful changes to them, and they're worried about their service. So it's even if they're in agreement in principle, it's a big change.
When you only have six in 14 months, that tells you
a
bit about.
I mean, OC started slow as well. It was 12, and then it was none for a long while, and it's starting to tick back up now. So we'll see. I think a lot of it will be back to that commercial question earlier. If the market starts demanding it, the operators will move. It's the market that moves them more than anything else. So we'll see how it goes. Great. Any more questions? Yeah. Dino?
I noticed in the demo you didn't have an emergency location set up, and I'm just curious what guidance the carriers are providing in terms of setting one, because it is mobile.
Yeah, good question. So I think on the deployment steps it has to have one, but it's the mobile, when it's in mobile mode, will use the mobile-based location, so it wouldn't use the Teams location. I'm not 100% sure what the guidance is, and obviously it will vary from country to country as well. So this was a UK sandbox as well as opposed to US. Good question. Cool. If there's no more, we'll give a little bit of time back. Thanks for coming. I hope that was useful for you. Again, please do visit the sponsors and make sure you say hello to them. And if this was useful, really appreciate any reviews, or you've got ideas and feedback and questions, appreciate that too. I'll be knocking around afterwards. There's a lot of knowledgeable people in this room as well. So if you want to stay around and have a bit of an off the mic chat, happy to do that. Thanks ever so much. Appreciate it.